Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, talk about 3 games, some honorable mentions, and some other odds and ends to get around some video game conversation. I'm Dan Tucker, as always, with me, El Ray.
Tonight we have a guest who is no stranger to podcasts himself. We have Brian McGuinness, AKA laughatbrian. You can find him at c3.gg/laughatbrian. All the links in one spot. Host of Videoizers, host of the Playable Characters podcast. Brian McGuinness, say hi to everybody tonight.
Hello, what a smooth intro. One take, you guys. Wink, wink.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't worry about that stuff that's going to end. Feel free to stick around we're going to have our first post-credit scene after this episode, I think.
Worth it. Chef's kiss. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is very exciting.
Extra exciting because this one's actually getting recorded on a Monday instead of a Sunday. So everything has been changed. We have no idea what's going to happen tonight.
This is crazy.
But with all that, we're going to jump right into this, to the number one game on the list. That is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES, the 4-point rating on Channel 3. There's even an IGN article, not even creator Kevin Eastman can beat that level. Yeah. Brian, tell us about the game.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a big Ninja Turtle fan. Still to this day. Since I got my first figure, my first Donatello figure in 4th grade. I'm 42 now, so I've always been a fan. And it never waned. It never went away. Turtles are still a thing. There's been 100 iterations of them. The IDW comic series is still going, and it's freaking amazing. So I love that. Like, He-Man went away, then it came back, but Turtles never went away, I feel like, and they're still here. So when I got that first Ninja Turtle game, it blew my mind. But also, I knew at the time that it wasn't great, right? But because I played it so much and had to convince myself that it's a great game just because it's the Turtles. You know, they've had plenty of bad games actually since then. But I had to convince myself, and obviously most people would pick Turtles 2, which is this far superior Turtles game. I get that. But the first one meant so much to me, and I got so good at it and forced myself to actually beat it. It does hold a special place in my mind. And going back now, okay, if there's random enemies like that fire guy, he's not a turtle. He's a nothing. He's never been in a turtle comic or cartoon, nothing. There's a lot of enemies in the game that just aren't lore, for the Ninja Turtles. And they have 1 billion characters, but they just made up a couple things for the Nintendo game. But I actually love it. I think the music's great. The graphics are really good. And the gameplay, while some things like those couple jumps are annoying, I still think it's actually technically a very good game, even though it's got that old school, very hard Nintendo difficulty.
I was going to say, it's not, you kept referencing a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's an infuriating, it is an infuriating game, and really only for the one level. Because even when you're talking about, say someone were to Game Genie around that level or work the way around that, like it's not that bad. It's just that one level's notorious for it.
And because it's like 15 minutes in, like 10, 15 minutes into the game.
Yeah, it's a second level, isn't it?
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is cool. Oh, cool, Bebop, Rocksteady, great. But then you're like, what is this? This is annoying. So I'm gonna relate this to kind of like the Battletoads speed tunnel. The Battletoads speed tunnel level is a joke. It's easy for me.
10 times out of 10. Giving the bike level and Battletoads over the bomb level.
Yeah, okay. And plus, I beat that 10 out of 10 times. I think it's easy. The later levels of Battletoads are hilariously impossible. I am one of the few. I'm proud I beat that game without Game Genie on Thanksgiving one day at my family's house. So I beat Battletoads. Never again. But I remember playing it, and I've watched people play it, and I've played it since with like cheats on. And I'm like, even with unlimited energy, this game is freaking hard. So the sewer level, like, the defusing the bombs and turtles, it's hard and annoying, but the later stuff is equally as hard, if not harder, I think. But people never made it to those levels, I think, so they don't even know that there's more chaos to come. You got to get the scrolls, you got to get the rope bridge nonsense and the maze, technodrome, and all that stuff. It's hard. So it was frustrating because you want to just have fun playing a turtle game. But then they're like, who made this so friggin' hard? It's for kids, for Pete's sake, So that's how I feel about that.
Ninja Turtles.
I don't think NES. I don't think NES games really knew the capabilities of children, because there's so many that just notoriously hard. I mean, even you go today and you're like, there's 2 buttons and I'm struggling to get through this right now.
So I play on a lot of my handhelds, my Ambernic emulator devices, and I'm plowing through the Mega Mans right now. I beat like 2, 3, and 4 as a kid, and 1, but only once or twice each, if that. But now I'm playing through them all with infinite lives, infinite energy, and they're still hard. But I'm like, I just want to enjoy the game. I don't have time for this. Again, I'm 42. I got kids. I just want to enjoy this game. I want to see the ending and just say, yeah, I beat Mega Man 6. Sure. Who cares if his cheats were on? But yeah, these games, some of them, that old school Nintendo difficulty was just brutal. Some of these things, absolutely brutal. I can't do it anymore.
One, the Konami code was invented for a reason, and it wasn't for boredom. It was so the developers could actually play the game. That's what you have to remember, first of all. The other thing I was going to say, too, Ninja Turtles is not the most lore-breaking game I could think of. The thing that immediately popped in mind is that E.T. game for Atari. Where, like, E.T.'s running around shooting things with lasers. Like, hey, that Ninja Turtles fire guy, no problem. They can retcon that in there somewhere, but not
I had that game for my Atari when I was 3 and 4 years old. I had the Atari game for E.T., and I remember hating it then. I totally understand the story. That game didn't single-handedly kill the industry. It was hundreds of terrible games before that, but that was like the final straw, But yeah, it's not a good game. And the guy had 5 weeks to make it. It's a great game if you look at it that way. I couldn't do that in 5 weeks, but that was the problem with it. Yeah.
There's a great silly show, I don't even know where you can find it anymore, called Code Monkeys. And they had an episode about that where they basically just said, like, oh, let's make this movie for this game for the Steven Spielberg movie. No idea what E.T.'s. Oh, it's an alien invasion movie. That's what it is. And that's how they came up with it before they had to bury the thing. So worth finding if you can find that episode.
I think Showtime or something did a documentary about it. It was called Game Over Atari, something like that.
Yeah, that was how they found wherever it was, like whatever the warehouse was, or I know it's like legendary landfill. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was true. That was in New Mexico, Arizona. That was true. They buried them. That was an excellent documentary about that story. If you don't know the ET story, I mean, most people, I think, have the wrong, ideas about it because of what we heard. But there is a really interesting story. And the guy who made it is still like, I think Scott Warshaw, is that his name? He's still like proud of it because like he had 5 weeks to make this thing,
to bang that out. Yeah.
Yes, to coincide with the movie premiere, so it wasn't easy to do. But he was like, he took the challenge. Like, I'll do it.
Let's continue down the difficulty streak. I say, kind of jokingly. Let's go to let's snap the rubber band back. Let's talk about Stardew Valley. 4.4 rating from the crew. A lot of lists this one's on, Brian. It's on a lot of favorite lists. It's on multiple purchase lists. Talk to us. What brought us to Stardew Valley?
So I've never played farming games or anything like that ever. Never even considered it. Right. So I remember just one day on like Amazon or Best Buy, it said Stardew Valley, complete or whatever, complete edition for like $15. And the game's only like $15 ever anyway. So I was like, and I like collecting just collector's editions just for no reason, even on games I never played. So I looked up a couple reviews, and most of the reviews were like, this game will actually blow your mind with how good it is. And I read a couple things. I'm like, how? It's just, it looks, I like the art, the retro art type of thing. So I was like, all right, whatever. Got it. I think I didn't play it for months, and then, put it in one day and I was like, okay, this is fine. Played it for a couple hours and that was it. And then a couple friends, just like a year later, probably just like, oh, I've played this game Stardew Valley. I'm like, oh, I have that. I didn't really like it. Like, try it again and just really focus on what you're doing in the beginning. I went back to it, and then, 150 hours later, it's like I couldn't get enough of it because the guy, I read the story about the guy, is one guy, Concerned Ape, that's what he goes by. He made the game. His name's Eric Barone. He made the game by himself. He said it was going to take him 6 months. Took him like 6 years. Him and his wife were like, scrounging money just so he can finish this game. And once I read that, I was like, I had way more respect for the game. Went back, and it starts off, yes, as just a farming game, relationships with the townsfolk, all that stuff. But holy cow, there's so much more to that game than you think. And you may not even know it until 10, 15, 20, 50 hours later. You're still unlocking little side paths, or not really quests, but just little things that he put in that game and make you go off and stop doing what you were focusing on, and then go back to it a few days later, because there's so much freaking content in this $15 game. Now it's like usually $8 on sale. But I always say if I had one game the rest of my life, it would probably be that, because it never ends. And it's always different, I feel like, and there's always something to do. There's never, like, Animal Crossing kind of gets boring, and it's similar to that in a way, but there's nothing there's always something happening in Stardew Valley, and I don't know how he did it. I can't wait for his next game, but it's such an incredible feat what he did. I know it looks like a really weird farm sim game, but there's so much more to it than that. And I think everybody should try. And I totally get if people give up after an hour or two. I totally get that. I'm always like, just give it like 60 more hours. just put in 100 more hours. I promise you'll love the game, you know? There's so much to find and figure out.
Ray's probably trying to figure out, while you were talking about that, it really got me thinking. It's probably a quest we have to look at for the future. What's a game you had to go back to and start again? You know, one that just like didn't click the first time. I'm impressed you went back to it, right? That there's just some games you get to and you're like, nope, it's going in the pit of misery. And I'll tell you, I'll get to you someday. But no, you were just going to sit there and collect dust digitally or physically. But that's impressive.
I got plenty of those. And yeah, I'm so happy I did because I double dipped. I got on the Switch, then I got on the PS4 edition. And I was just like, it's so great on the Switch too, just playing it on the go. And it's just like, there's so much to do, different ways to go. It never says, this is what you have to do next, ever. It never says that, you know? And there's 50 things you could do next. It's not an overwhelming amount of things. There's nothing urgent. There's nothing like, you got to do this before this happens. Nope. Obviously, the seasons change and like, you got to grow your yams and, different than your friggin' sunflowers. I get that. But there's a lot to do. Never urgent. Never prioritize anything over anything else. Whatever you want to focus on, do it. The first playthrough I did like 100 hours on the Switch. I never got married, never made friends with anybody. I was so focused on like mining and building my farm. And then the next time I played on the PS4, I was like, I'm going to focus on trying to friggin' marry somebody finally. And that opens up tons of new stuff also. And it's like, this is amazing. Like, this is so great. The amount of content for that little game from one guy is mind blowing, I think. That's what's so cool about it.
So let's take a little segue here. We're going to go over, speaking of the PlayStation, let's talk about your third game here, which a reboot sequel, kind of the franchise seemed like it was dead. Back comes in God of War, 4.8 rating from the crew on Channel 3. If it was not for Spider-Man's existence, I would call it the generational GOAT for the PlayStation 4. And the last thing I'll say before I kick it to you, just when you look at the lists on Channel 4, it's on recommended lists, it's on favorite lists. It's on a bunch of Mount Rushmores too. I mean, this is a top 4 game for some people that, I mean, again, by the time you get to God of War 3, it's just like, okay, we get it. I was kind of done with it. And then he came back in and not only they just changed the gameplay. I'll shut up and let you take over. Then I'll add something if I have to, but I got to shut up now.
What a-hole gave that less than 5 stars? That's what I want to know.
I've had that question for a couple games. So I'm gonna make an assumption on this
I will just say, Brian, episode 5 has yet to drop, but I did go off on a tirade that I did leave in about I believe I've declared an enemy of the podcast, and I'm looking up now to see if the enemy of the podcast is in fact Joel, responsible for this.
Is it Joel?
No,
Joel's trying to stir the pot.
It wasn't Joel this time. Joel was a different one, though.
I mean, Mario 3 or something like that. Yes. Joel's like, yeah, this is a 1-star game, whatever.
He 3-starred the original Super Mario Brothers. That was what we went after Joel for in an episode. We went after him for that.
If that came out today, sure, 3 stars. But back then, 100 stars, God of War, when I first played that for PS2, my head exploded. The first one. I was like, I've never played something like this. This is awesome. This is really cool. Yeah, it gets a little repetitive with the button mashing, whatever. I thought the character was awesome. I thought the story was awesome. And I've never seen a scale that before of a game on a PS2. I thought it was just like, this is bad, And I loved every God of War game. I mean, I know people after 3 or Ascension wasn't that good, but I still enjoyed those a lot. The PSP ones are incredible. A lot of people don't know. And it was on. They really re-released those on a PS3 compilation. I think the PSP. There's 2 games, and they're friggin' good. Like for a PSP game, they're really really good. And then when I remember when they showed the trailer at E3 for God of War 2018. I guess in like 2016 probably, and the crowd lost their minds. I was at home losing my mind. I was like, yes. Finally, when they finally showed it was Kratos, you're like, oh my God, this is happening finally. And you knew it was going to, but we didn't even know until like, if you watch that trailer, if you go back and look at that trailer, it takes about 40 seconds to realize who it is. Like, because it's in the dark, you don't know. He's talking, but it doesn't sound like the Kratos from the PS2 and 3. So it was a really cool way they did that reveal, because all you see is Atreus versus his son. Then he kind of comes into the light. So, I remember when I got that game, UPS was like a day or two late, and I was losing my mind. All my friends were playing it. I was like, come on! I got it, and I think I plowed through it in 3 days. I beat it. I just couldn't stop playing it. I loved every single thing about it. It was difficult some parts, but the trolls or Brock and Sindri, his little buddies that upgrade his axes, those characters are awesome and hysterical. I think Atreus is the best, what do you call it, like just companion of any game ever. I think the way he's controlled, the way he's used, story, everything about it, I think he's the best like sidekick in any video game, because he's actually very effective. He's very helpful too. So
at no point is he at no point you're like, oh my god, none of that. None of that with him.
Never. At some point you want to slap him for being a little jerk.
Boy.
But yeah, but gameplay wise, he's awesome. And obviously this week the new one is coming out, and Wednesdays I'm just like, don't leave me alone. I'm gonna be in my room all day just playing this game. So I thought the graphics were incredible in that game. The gameplay was awesome. Throwing the axe and retrieving it was so great. When you get the blades back, oh my god, I still get chills thinking about that scene. The very, 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 very final scene of that game when you go back to his house and you know who shows up. If you don't know, it's too late for spoiler. When Thor shows up and it's just like, what? And my jaw dropped. So there's been almost in this series, God of War, the whole series, there's always a moment or two in each game my jaw just drops. I think in this, on Channel 3, I put my favorite boss fight was Kronos, God of War 3, I think. It's just this humongous titan you're fighting as badass Kratos, and he just goes nuts and kills this humongous thing. And it was so fun to play. I remember put my controller down in the bedroom. My wife's like, what happened? I'm like, I think I just played the greatest video game level I'm ever going to play. I couldn't play anymore after that level. It blew my mind how fun it was. So that game, yeah, I think Spider-Man's excellent, and Last of Us is a masterpiece, and it's perfect. God of War is just like, I think it's so friggin' cool. The story, they're not like, I think when a company lifts the review embargo a week before the game comes out, nowadays it's kind of rare. I feel like some games do it after. It's like, they're confident as all hell is what this game, because it's averaging like 95 out of 100 from everybody, or perfect 10s, this new one. So I can't wait. It's even better than if the new one's even better than the 2018 one, we're all in for a treat. I'm rambling on a lot because I just love the game so much, but I just think it's awesome. I think what they did with the no loading screen thing.
Yeah, I was going to call that out too. Yeah, the tactical jumps they made.
They disguised it as like walking through that realm thing, and it's awesome. But the whole game takes place in like 12 hours real time, technically, and the fact that they did that is just like it's amazing. It's one journey that they're going on. It's not over the course of a couple of years, So it's perfect. I think that game is so much fun. I hate the Valkyries though; they're hard. There's a couple in the game I don't even try. I'm just like, nope, I'm passing you. I don't care. You can go sleep in your cave forever for all I care. Yeah, God of War is great.
You don't even realize that loading thing is there at first. Like, unless you were reading about it, just suddenly you realize, like, wait a minute, there's no cut that's happening. There's no loading screen. Because like you said, there's stuff happening. You could see, like, if you're looking for, like, okay, I know where the loading's happening, but they just sneak it in there. And I just have to say, too, you talked about the first God of War, and I remember going into the video store when that came out. I was working full time. It was summer. I remember it came out. I walked in. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I have a little disposable income. Let me get a game. Like, oh, you heard of God of War? And I'm like, nah, but let's go for it. And same thing like you said. I remember, what was it, the first fight where it's not what is the first fight on the ship?
Yeah, it's the Kremlin. You're the Kraken. You're on the boat. Yeah, and it's bananas. It's crazy. Every game starts like that almost. If it God of War, it's just like there's no time to like ease into it.
I fell off of it, but this just snapped you right back in. And the fact they just moved like, okay, well, we killed every god and god adjacent entity through the original games. Like, all right, we're moving over. Shift. We're coming for yours next.
I love it. It's great.
Playable Characters Podcast, funny interviews with real video game characters.
Hi, I'm Calvin Cato.
And I'm Brian McGuinness, and we interview video game characters on our show. We have comedians and actors come on and pretend they're a video game character for 30 minutes. We talk to them. It's all ad-libbed and improvised and always very funny.
Past guests include Bowser, Ms. Pac-Man, Q*bert, Princess Peach, and Princess Daisy.
You put them in a booth, and something short-circuited, and I decided that someone was taking too long in the money booth. And I hit her with a baseball bat. And thus was born Super Smash TV.
Just like that.
I was being raised by a family of toadstools.
How was that? That seemed like it might be kind of fun.
It was really fun.
Mario stick to plumbing. Okay, he's from what I hear, a good plumber, a terrible hero.
Yeah.
So I mean, really bad. And I mean, let's not get started on his whatever he is. Friend, brother, special friend. I don't know, Luigi, whatever they're doing. Well, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. They're saying they're brothers because, in the Italian American community, these people tend to not look kindly on certain relations.
If you want to know what's going on in your favorite video game character's life, check us out. Playable Characters Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes, comes out every Monday.
All right, with that, we finished the top 3. We're going to move on to the honorable mentions. 1 to 3 games that needed to be talked about as well. So the first one is when I think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is what I think of. You have the arcade game. So let's talk about that one.
So it is hard picking your 3 favorite games. I've played 70,000 games. I feel like it's hard picking the top 3. So it was fun to try to do this, But the Turtles arcade game, that's my go-to. That or NBA Jam. If I see those at a barcade or anything like that, like I'm just playing it. I have an arcade one up which I modified, and Turtles is in that. I have Turtles arcade game in every iteration possible for free at my house, but I will still go put a couple quarters into a TMNT arcade game. It's still I think the most perfect arcade game ever made. You can argue Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, but for a side-scrolling beat 'em up, you got X-Men and you got Simpsons, but Simpsons gets a smidge boring, I think. It's a good game, but Turtles is just it's awesome. It still runs perfectly. Graphics are great. Sound, music, everything about it is just 10 out of 10.
I don't know where it falls compared to X-Men, but you brought up The Simpsons. And there were so many arcade games that were just like, okay, reskin it, run the Turtles game again. It felt like, or at least run the play again, even if not a direct reskin. So all those other games you mentioned, I'm like, no, Ninja Turtles is the one that stands on top, and it felt like everybody else was just trying to keep up and run that play again with their IP for it.
And it still looks awesome. Like, X-Men was a game changer for the 6-player. That was just insane. And it was so much fun. And I put them pretty close together, but I think just Turtles, just my love of them in general. It's still such a great game. It's not dated at all. Like, it looks awesome still. Like, a Simpsons one kind of looks dated, I think, sometimes. But not the Turtles. You hear it when you walk in a barcade, like, there it is, and it still makes people. It still get the biggest crowd too. Usually, waiting to play. I think.
And I agree with you. The graphics too. For whatever reason, the Ninja Turtles graphics kind of hold their place when the other thing, right? They look a bit old. For some reason, the Turtles always look good.
You nailed it, man. Nailed it.
All right. So after that, though, we go to Final Fight. Where does that land?
Yeah, as far as one of my favorite arcade games, that was when I used to go to the roller rink, the United Skates of America, they called it, for birthday parties. I had the skates on because you had to, but I'd be standing there at the Final Fight machine with my roller skates on, playing as Hagar for the hour and a half that the party was going on. My mom would give me like $1.50 and be like, "Make it last." That's how I got good at games. I couldn't get a lot of money from my parents. They would give like $1 or $2, and I had to scrounge quarters from somewhere else if I had any like hidden. But I would have to get really good at these games to make the quarters last. And then back then we know it was impossible because they were so hard on purpose. But I thought Final Fight, with the size of the characters on the screen, the different ones. You had Hagar, you had Guy, you had Cody. They were all different. Hagar was always my go-to. I thought he was just the coolest looking dude. The pile driver and the power bombs you'd give people. And it was a hard game, but it was relentless as far as the enemies that threw at you. But it was so much fun playing with 2 or 3 friends on that arcade cabinet. And I loved it. Again, probably some of the best graphics you'll ever see in an arcade game. I had that on Super Nintendo, played it constantly. I still play it nowadays every now and then. I just think it's such a fun, silly, mindless beat 'em up that, Turtles was a fun type of thing, and Final Fight's just like mindless, dumb stupidity. And it's the same genre, technically, but just an awesome, awesome arcade game for me. A lot of memories on that one.
It took me a minute to come out of my fugue state or transportation at the time when you talked about the skating rink. I could smell it. I could feel the lighting. I could feel the neon. I could hear the clacking of the roller skates. Mm-hmm. But that Final Fight was a Pizza Hut special for me.
Hell yeah, yeah. I just went to my daughter had a birthday party at the United Skates I grew up at. pretty much in Massapequa, Long Island, like about earlier this year. And I haven't been there since I was probably 12. I walk in, I'm like, they did nothing to this place. It's the exact same place. They changed the arcades to like the big Dave and Buster ticket machines, which is unfortunate, but everything else was the same, looked, smelled, felt the same. And the Scatosaurus, the mascot there, same costume. Same exact dirty, filthy green dinosaur costume when I was 8 years old. This guy's skating around, like, good for him, man. But it was the same exact thing. It was hysterical. So,
How does that place still exist?
Takes you back, man. I have no idea, but people go. People go.
We're not gonna make any guesses about drug fronts here. We're gonna move on to game number 3 on that note. You mentioned it briefly. You know, we got a little bit of an arcade theme here for the honorable mentions. Yeah. NBA Jam, that's number 3 here.
What's great about Jam, I'm a huge basketball fan in general, but anybody could play Jam and have fun. I have friends that despise sports that are huge gamers and will still enjoy playing Jam. It was you didn't need to learn. You didn't really need to know anything about basketball. It was fun. It was loud. It was silly with the on fire, with the announcer. All that stuff made it so cool. It had the actual players in it, you know. And I'm a huge Penny Hardaway fanatic. My daughter's name is Penny because of him. So I used to always use the Magic. It was great. Jam still, I think, probably holds up as the tournament edition, a little better, obviously, because it's a little newer. But it was such a groundbreaking, fun, awesome game. When you heard that boom shakalaka, everything, when you walk into the arcade and you see 3 Jam cabinets and they're just crowded, people around them, you get the on fire, the crowd goes crazy, like the actual people playing. You know, it was such a fun, I think, experience to have with other people playing Jam with random people. Like I'll go to a barcade with some friends, 2-on-2. Me and my friend play against 2 random people, and it gets competitive, man. Like I want to win so badly. It's just fun. I think it was a great experience to play that overall. And winning. If you put in all 4 quarters and you win, you get to stay on and play again. Heck yeah, that's the best.
What was your go-to? So you talked the Orlando Magic. That was the go-to squad. Yeah. What was your go-to cheat code, though? What was the go-to mode you'd add to it?
I didn't care about the cheat codes because I always wanted to just play as Penny Hardaway. I didn't care about Bill Clinton
you didn't
or
want the big head move? You didn't want Penny Hardaway with the big head on the little body? Not even that?
Every now and then I put the big head mode on, I guess. But overall, I just didn't care. If people wanted to do it, I would do it. But it didn't bother me either way. But when people put the fun characters in, I did enjoy that. But I'm like, I'm going to stick with Penny.
Oh, I forgot there was all like you could have like the Bill Clintons and the
yeah, man, they had tons of people. Yeah, but I'm going to drop 50 with Penny on you. So they had like Air Dog, they had George Clinton. Did they have George Clinton? They had right? They had Scorpion.
Did they have Will Smith in that one? Was that the one?
With
Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff.
I feel like that.
They're in some game.
I feel like that was like the Funko Pop of that era. Everybody got into NBA Jam back then. They just had a weird code to put the person in. There's a lot of hidden characters there. Yeah, they put the developers in there. You know, this is like random people. It's fun.
So let's talk about. You've already made a couple of allusions to some future games we're looking forward to. We already went off a little bit about God of War, but let's talk about Ragnarok. We're here on what's basically Ragnarok Eve. The reviews, like you said,
I know
they're coming in strong. They're coming in hot, and I am doing my best to avoid spoilers. So I'm very cautious welcoming the news and seeing Ragnarok in there. And what I do and don't look at is I'm very selective about, because I know they've been very sensitive about some of these leaks that have been happening.
I hate the leaks, man. It's just annoying. Like if Last of Us 2 got leaked from me, I would have been so mad, because that game took me on the biggest mental mind F of any game I've ever played.
Say it louder for the people in back, Brian.
Last of Us 2, man. If you don't like that game, there's something wrong with you. It's perfect. It did things I've never seen in games before. When you switch to Abby, the way it did it, the way it did the flashbacks, the way it took you back to Ellie. Oh my god! Like it took me 12 hours of that game. Sorry, there's a little tangent. Because I thought Last of Us 1 was probably the best game I ever played to that point. It took me like 12 hours. I was like, this isn't even as good as the first one. And then obviously, 2 hours in, the Joel thing happened. And that made me say, "What?"
You knew it was
like blue,
but
I didn't know it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
I didn't know.
Worked up about that. That's where I get upset. Like, how could you not tell from the trailers it was coming? People, get over it.
I thought it was going to be a mostly Ellie game. I didn't know that was going to happen the way it happened. Right?
Oh yeah, it was the way it happened. I'll say that. Yeah, I agree.
Brutal. Yeah. My God. So what was I going with? Oh yeah. So it took me 12 hours, and I'm like, this isn't even. I mean, it's good, obviously, but it's not as good as the first one. And then something happened. And they did this thing, and I'm like, oh, that was I've never seen this before in game.
That's very well put by you to avoid spoilers, but still capture that was very well put.
Yeah, and then it happened again. What they did a little different. I'm like, oh my god, they're doing this again, and it's working. And then the very last part, you're like, I hate Abby. Yeah, you're like, I hate Abby. I want Ellie to win. Then you're like, I think I hate Ellie. I want Abby to win. What is going on? Like the way they did that. The writers, again, I do, I do a lot of stuff outside, but it's like I appreciate that so much. To make somebody feel that way for a video game, I don't think it's ever been done that well before. A lot of games have the emotional attachment. I get that, but that was just such a hold on. Again, that's one of the games you put the control down. When those credits rolled, I just sat there for like 5 minutes. Thinking about what I just saw, and I'm like, I'm probably never going to play this game ever again because first of all, it was long, but also it was so good. I don't want to ruin. Like, I'll never have this feeling again. I think maybe I'll play it in 5 years. I'll forget most of it. I don't know, but it was so perfectly done. Every freaking part of that game. Just kind of
masterclass in empathy. That's what I describe that way.
Yes, yeah. And Abby freaking rules. If you don't think so, go jump off a cliff. He's awesome.
We're gonna get our listens up on this one just because of the hot takes on Last of Us 2. Gonna make some people mad. Let's do this.
Good. It's perfect. So God of War Ragnarok, man. Yeah, I muted the word Kratos on Twitter just in case. I just didn't want anything. I didn't want any spoilers. All I saw was like the number reviews. I didn't read anything. I just saw this person gave it a 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Great. I'm good. And I have a friend that works for Laptop Magazine, and she was playing it like 3 weeks ago. So I messaged her on play. I'm like, what? She goes, I'm like, am I going to be excited? She goes, you will be excited. I'm like, thank you. So
what a year for like game of the year game. Like Horizon Forbidden West is out there. And
better than the first one.
It got crushed. It got crushed by Elden Ring, I feel like, in the narrative because they were so close together. So you got that, you got Horizon, you got Elden Ring, and you got this coming out. Like what a year!
What a year! We're so spoiled, man. We really are. And then the Turtles come back again. The Shredder's Revenge, the Cowabunga. I mean, there's so much cool stuff. And Inscription, which I'm playing now, Inscription might be my game of the year, to be honest. Like this little weird deck building game, which is blowing my mind at every turn. It's incredible. I highly recommend. I keep putting on Channel 3, but I love it. So yeah, Ragnarok. I can't believe it's here. I really can't believe like 2 months ago, I'm like, oh my god, it's actually in like 2 months. Like it's coming out. Like I got so excited.
You're just living your life. I have to not die before Ragnarok comes out. I have to not die 2 more months.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, it's actually here. And then like this month, I'm like, wait, it's actually next week. And now it's like we're here. It's this week, and I can't wait. Just put it in. Delete half my hard drive first, of course, on my PS5, and then install that game and just see what it. I have no idea anything about it, which I can't. I'm so excited that I'm going in completely blank about. No spoilers, nothing. I hope it picks up exactly where the first one left off.
It looks like it starts exactly.
Yeah, which is great. It should. So I can't wait to see what they do. And I was a little annoyed that I did see that it was like 30 plus hours. I'm like, I wish it was just like. Oh, I just want to beat it and just have fun with it,
Don't make me collect a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, but I don't think they do. They really didn't because I played the first one.
Yeah,
and then I usually never go back and replay games a lot. I wish I did more, but I just don't. I remember buying like the big, thick, hardcover red strategy guide for God of War 2018, right? Just to go through and actually, I played the game reading this guide just to make sure I didn't miss anything. There's a few things I never even thought about checking. It was kind of cool to do that. But overall, most of the stuff in God of War, I feel like you can kind of get to. And what may be good at going off the beaten path a little? It was the Uncharted series because there's always something around the corner of Uncharted. Like, don't go the main path. Look this way for a second. And God of War maybe kind of do that. So if you think you're supposed to go this way, just go left for a second just to see what's over there and go find like a chest.
Glisten in the corner in Uncharted. It's some statue.
What is that? Yeah, push triangle for a second, So it's like you got to see what that is. So I think it's not too far off the beaten path. A lot of times in God of War, it's pretty quick to get you back on track. But a lot of times I will not grind. I will just try to. I'm big on the story. That's why no console wars. But I think PlayStation, it's not even close as far as exclusives and the single player story-driven games. It's not even close of who wins that.
We're pulling out of this one. We're not getting Ray riled up. We're not getting anybody that.
I don't want to
talk Last of Us 2 all day. We're pulling back.
I don't want it.
Ray, jump in here, Ray. Get to the next game.
The only thing I'm going to say, and then we'll get to the next game, is that once again, everyone talks about there's 1,000,001 multiplayers, and there's all these free-to-play games, and we're playing all this all the time, and then you say, well, what's going to be the game of the year? What's going to be one of these 3 games that were sit down and play by yourself for 50 hours and dive into a deep story. So I'm just happy. It doesn't matter how many multiplayers and this battle pass and this or that. At the end of the day, you're still getting some real high quality sit down and enjoy a new story kind of game. And
That's true.
That makes me happy.
Hey, there you go. And that's great because that's what it's all about. But I enjoy Call of Duty and Fortnite with friends, but able to sit down and just be with myself and just play a game that's going to make me feel something or go holy S a couple. I don't know if you can curse on this podcast a couple times. Like that. I want that like holy cow moment, know? And God of War does it. Last of Us does it. Horizon did it a few times. And, there's a clear winner of who does that best and who focuses on that. And they're both going their different ways. I get that. Xbox and PlayStation, we need that. They're both going through this next gen completely different ways. And it's fine, One is better than the other. Who cares? No, I'm just kidding. But it's great. Games are great. Who cares?
Ray, mark the edit point for me. God.
All right. So with all the stories, of course, last future game, you kind of alluded to it. The Haunted Chocolatier, which is from the makers of Stardew Valley.
Yeah, this guy does the littlest teasers ever. And like just one day early this year, he's like, "Hey, I'm making a new game called the Haunted Chocolatier. Here's a screenshot." And we just went, as fans, like, "Oh my God," like just went crazy, because he's still working on Stardew Valley up until recently. He was still putting stuff out. And then he released just like a boss fight screenshot plus the music that went along with it. Again, this guy does every single thing himself. He's the only person making this. And it was such a cool, fun, tune. And it was like, yes, this makes sense. This is awesome. So whatever this guy does forever, if he makes games for the next 80 years, I'll be dead. But I'm going to keep buying whatever he does, because he proved himself with Stardew, how creative, how ambitious he is, I think, and just how determined and dedicated to making a great game. Like there's no junk or fluff in his game. It's just like, it's polished beyond polish. That's why it took him so long. So the Haunted Chocolatier, it's a ridiculous name. I get that, but it seems awesome. It's Stardew-ish. He said it's different enough that it's not going to be like, too crazy.
We just have to get Ray off of Marvel Snap long enough to give Stardew Valley a shot.
Oh man, I'm doing it too. I'm still playing Angry Birds Journeys. Like I suck. That's my toilet game.
That's a whole other question we got to go down the list for sometime.
What are your top 3 toilet games?
Hey, so one thing we didn't warn you about, we ask a question reminder from the Channel 3 history, and we ask you to talk about that one a little bit with us. And the quest we picked for you is to tell us about your biggest win you had in a video game tournament, or your favorite tournament you participated in. I don't know if you remember what your response was, or if you've got something else that jumps to mind.
My local comic shop, when I was like, I don't know, 11, 12 maybe, they had a Neo Geo cabinet, which weren't that common back then. Street Fighter was everywhere, Mortal Kombat was everywhere, and I loved playing those. They had this Neo Geo cabinet, which had probably 50 shmups in it, of course, because Neo Geo is full of shmups and fighting games. They had World Heroes, and never played it before. I had to go on my friend's CompuServe to find the moves. They would dial up Earthlink, whatever it was. I remember I chose Jane, or Jan, I don't know how to actually say it, because I'm a big Chun-Li person, so I like being the women fighters. And she had a sword too, so she was kind of bad. I go to the comic store probably 3 times a week. It was around the block for me. And I started playing, and the guy one day was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a little tournament this weekend if you want to join." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And I won. I probably got like a $5 or $10 gift card to the comic store. But back then I was like, this is amazing. I'm the coolest kid in school right now. I wasn't, but I felt that way. So World Heroes probably, I don't know if I've done many tournaments. I wish I did, but that still sticks in my mind as like a pretty cool moment, because there was a bunch of people there playing, and I remember just whipping ass to everybody. That was fun.
All right, so we make it to the final question here, which is, what is your favorite Channel 3 feature? Now, it doesn't have to be, I always have to explain, it does not need to be an actual technological feature, just your favorite part of C3 so far.
There's no whiny gamer people on this site. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah, and say what you want about Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. What's good about those is that you can also just follow what you want, and you don't see the other 99% of the cesspool that this world is. I'm just going to focus on what I like: sports, games, whatever, turtles. But for This I haven't. I was when my friend told me about Channel 3, who knew Joel. I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. What's But then I was like, oh, well, a few days of using it every day. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. There's something here, and there's no BS. There's no jerks and fighting, whatever. It's all completely, nudge, nudge, having fun. If there's any trash talking, but all in a good way. And I thought it was a really cool, great idea that we all hope it just kind of keeps growing and taking off the way it has been. But that's probably the coolest thing about it. As far as the actual other stuff on the site, when I saw you could rate the systems and the consoles, I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. Because I've had so many over the years, so I started rating all those one day. And I was like, how much do I like the Wii U? I want to get yelled at by somebody because I love the Wii U. It was just 7 people bought it. It's got the best Mario game of all time, which is 3D World. And yes, I said it. So it's like, but no one played that until it just came out on the Switch finally.
The scorching takes, you just keep dropping them.
3D World's the best game you'll ever play for Mario. Sorry. In fact, New Donk City is the best Mario level ever. In Odyssey, New Donk City.
It really is.
Perfect. But it's the funnest. If you don't play that and your face doesn't hurt from smiling, you're crazy. But 3D World, I thought was the most unique, creative, fun, different Mario I've ever played. Yeah, I like a lot of that stuff. I do always like just like I'll click a game and just review it and rate it. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, man, I'm giving everything 5 stars. I like all this stuff, But every now and then, like I do. There's plenty of games I hate as well. I just haven't found them on the site. Maybe except for Balan Wonderworld, a piece of garbage game. Worst game I've ever played. Everybody should play it because it's the weirdest, stupidest, worst game of all time. Balan Wonderworld. That is my final take.
Hey, I got to call out. You are the host of Triple Dare on Thursday nights. 9:00.
Yeah.
That's we finished 2 weeks now. Again, you kind of put a timetable. We do record a little bit in advance, just so we have time to kind of fit everything together in case something goes wrong. Like Ray loses those golden pipes. But you've done a pretty good job so far. We're enjoying mixing up 3 games in there, and everybody's basically got an hour. And play a game you want to play, see if you can get in there, get some experience points, rank up there, and I like the mix you're putting together too.
A picture like Supermarket Sweep. You're just like, okay, 9:00, go. Everybody just runs and like plays one of the 3 games right away. We got some fun games this week. I'm gonna have some special guests coming up. I know some of the people in Overwatch as the voices, so one of them might be joining me in the next week or two when this comes out. Maybe this week. Wink, wink. So make sure you play for the Overwatch challenge soon. But we're just trying to think of some fun, fun silly challenges to people and people, I think it's funny seeing people RSVP, as soon as we put it up there on the site, people are like, I'm going, I can't wait. And it's a fun thing to see. And that's a cool thing about this, that the camaraderie and just the people wanted to participate in the events and the challenges and just play games together. We had to force ourselves to do that when COVID happened. We'd play just randomly, I think, with friends sometime, but COVID forced, I think, to bring back that camaraderie and playing online with friends. And thank God I'm still doing it. It didn't go away, but that kind of jump-started again for me this is actually really fun. Just get 4 or 5 friends. Let's go online. Let's play a game together. Just have a good time. And that's what Channel 3, I think, is really, really about.
My RSVP finds me just plotting which game's going to be the first one.
Yeah.
You just try to figure out, all right, what's the strategy got to be? Like Fall Guys this week was like, got to get the Fall Guys first. We know that's going to have to be the first one. First one to get a crown gets the victory. So everybody just rushed into that one. It was fun. Fun how that went. And then we all got beaten down by Mr. Dream or Mike Tyson, depending on whether you had the old school version or not. My 3-punch battle where I looked at Mr. Dream and got knocked down 6 times in 3 minutes. That was a good time.
It's so hard still. It's ridiculous how hard. But you have to memorize that as a kid.
The problem
it's just a pattern.
You were evil because you progress when you actually fight Mike Tyson or Mr. Dream. You progress through the game and you learn where the patterns are and everything. No, you were a sadist who just dropped us in and said, go to one of the hardest things you could do on the Nintendo and just drop in and have fun.
It's true. It's very true. Let's man up, everybody. See how good you are. Punch out. And White Tyson, as we call him. Yeah, the reskinned Mike Tyson.
All right, with that, we've made it to the end of the episode. So, thank you, Brian. You can find Brian at c3.gg/laughatbrian. You can find the podcast, c3.gg/podcast. And as always, these drop Wednesday mornings at 3:33 a.m. on all the major platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. I am El Rey. Dan Tucker runs this whole thing. Brian McGuinness was our guest today. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
So, if you guys are good, I'm going to take a pause here and then we'll get started. Channel, God, see, hang on. Woosah. This is weird. We're not doing this on a Sunday night. I blame Ray.
Threw you off. Daylight savings, all that stuff. I get it.
That too. I'm Dan Tucker. As always, with me, El Ray. Usually with me, Ray muted himself.
I muted myself.
All right.
I was muting myself to stop in case I have to cough in between. I gotta remember to push the button.
The best part is, like, Brian actually does this stuff, and this has gone way better with the exception of the Block Mamba episode where everything just crapped out halfway through and we had to Frankenstein it together. This is the worst introduction we've had so far. So
my introduction really started with, here's a guy who does podcasts all the time. That's what I said while I was muted.
You're in our head.
Keep it in. The people like the behind the scenes-ness of this. Keep it in.
Let me try again. All right, so tonight we have a guest who is me, man. Jesus Christ.
Brian, the other thing too, like, you also have the most comments we have. Like, we have our notes page up here, so he's also, like, you know, going through the notes. You also have the most notes. This will have to be, like, put at the end. That's what's going to have to come into this. You also have the most notes of, like, things you actually do. So
I do a lot.